dropping by and checking out this week's video commentary. We're walking through our sermon series entitled Pray Like Jesus, and specifically, we're taking verse by verse and section by section of the Lord's Prayer to understand it more intentionally so that we can pray more effectively as both an individual and as a faith family. This week, we're looking at Matthew chapter 6, verse 9, and it's that verse which begins the Lord's Prayer: Our Father in heaven, hallowed or holy is your name. End of the sermon, I invite you to go listen to it or watch it. You can kind of get the full context when we break that down. And just what I want to share through this commentary is kind of one of my aha moments as I was studying through this passage. The Lord's Prayer, like a lot of things, has become so familiar. It's really easy to just kind of blitz through some statements or some words without really slowing down to ponder and meditate on the meaning or the weight. You know, the Bible was written in three languages, mostly Hebrew and Greek, and some Aramaic throughout. And there's a word that's used here in Matthew chapter 6, verse 9, our Father. And the word Father in the Greek would be pater, and in the Aramaic is Abba, and it means daddy. Now, this is why that is significant and important. Jesus was prone to disrupt tradition and the cultural norm. He just give you some examples. I think the Lord's Supper or the Passover feast is probably a very significant one. You know, that was a very annual, traditional, scripted Seder meal that they would walk through, and they thought that the bread historically was connected to the manna from the Exodus, but Jesus, he looks at this and no, this bread represents my body that was broken for you. Or the symbolism of the cup that you thought what it meant traditionally, it actually represents my blood that's been poured out for you. And so Jesus was prone to do that. And in fact, a lot of the tension or friction that he experienced between the Pharisees and the Sadducees was because of his disruption, some may even say rebellion toward tradition. Now, that is not suggesting or implying that you and I then should use that as a license to go break any tradition or cultural norm for the sake of doing so. Jesus was about course correcting and helping people understand the truth and what was intended from God's design from the beginning. Here, what I think is helpful, where Jesus kind of disrupts this traditional treatment of God's name to this much more intimate, personal level. One example of where Jesus demonstrates this level of intimacy in his relationship with God is in Mark chapter 14, verse 36. And there he's in the Garden of Gethsemane and he cries out to God and he says, Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Remove this cup from me, yet not what I will, but what you will. This level of intimacy as he cried out, saying, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. And he's really modeling for us this relationship of design and intimacy between us and Father God. Elsewhere in the New Testament, Galatians chapter 4, verse 6 tells us, and because you are sons, God has sent the Spirit of his Son into our hearts, crying, Abba, Father, Daddy, Daddy. Romans chapter 8, verse 15 tells us, hey, for you did not receive the spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you have received the spirit of adoption as sons, by whom we cry, Abba, Father, Daddy. I think the beauty of this, for us to kind of meditate on today, is the demonstration of Jesus in the Lord's Prayer and throughout his life while he was present in the flesh here on earth, to show us the intimacy that we can have with Father God as this transcendent, almighty, above all God who created the world, who is in charge of all things, in his love and care desires to have a relationship with us that is so intimate that we can cry out and say, Daddy, I love you. Daddy, I need you. Daddy, help me. Crying out to him. So my prayer for you this week, as you try to implement and practice the concepts of the Lord's Prayer through your daily relationship, that you would see God in his power, in his majesty, in his authority, but with the intimacy as your daddy. Be encouraged today as you pursue him and strengthen your relationship with him. As I say each week, feel free to check out more about who we are as a church. Check out last week's sermon here talking through Matthew chapter 6, verse 9, or any other sermons or content that we have available as we try to come alongside you and help you grow in our faith. You can visit our website at calvaryga.com. Thanks and have a blessed day.